Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. For Logan Carter, a dedicated mechanic in the small, sleepy town of Willow Creek, every day was a repeat of the last. Fixing engines, balancing bills, and pushing through exhaustion were simply part of the grind. He didn't expect much from life, until one fateful evening when a single act of kindness set in motion a chain of events that would transform his world. That rainy night, the roads were treacherous, the kind that made drivers clutch their steering wheels a little tighter. Logan, weary from another long shift at the garage, was on his way home when he noticed a lone figure standing by a broken-down car on the roadside. In that fleeting moment, he had a choice: to keep driving and ignore the scene, or to stop and help despite the downpour and his fatigue. Little did Logan know his decision to stop would change not only his life, but also the lives of those around him. What started as a simple favor would soon lead him to a world he had only ever dreamed of, a world of grand estates, unexpected generosity, and a mysterious woman whose gratitude would challenge everything Logan thought he knew about life. Curious about where this story is headed? You won't want to miss the incredible twists and turns ahead. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and stay with us as we unravel the tale of Logan Carter, a man whose kindness proved that even minor actions can lead to life's most significant rewards. What would you have done if you were Logan that night? Let us know in the comments, and stick around for this unforgettable journey. The rain fell relentlessly, soaking the streets and reducing visibility to mere feet. Logan squinted through the windshield, his wipers struggling to keep up. The dim glow of hazard lights flickered in the distance, catching his attention. As he drew closer, the scene became clearer. A woman in her late 30s, drenched and visibly distressed, stood beside a car that had given up on her. Logan's first instinct was to keep driving. It was late, he was tired, and his mind was already on the leftovers waiting for him at home. But something tugged at him, an inexplicable feeling he couldn't ignore. With a sigh, he pulled over, the gravel crunching under his tires, and stepped out into the rain. "Ma'am, do you need some help?" Logan called out, his voice carrying over the sound of the downpour. The woman turned, clutching her coat tighter around her shivering frame. "Yes, please. My car just died, and my phone's dead too. I didn't know what else to do." Logan nodded, quickly assessing the situation. The car, an older model sedan, wouldn't start, a dead battery, most likely. "I can jump-start it," he offered, heading to his truck for the cables. Despite the rain soaking through his jacket and the chill biting at his fingers, Logan worked swiftly. Minutes later, the car roared back to life. The woman, overwhelmed with relief, broke into a smile. "Thank you so much," she said, her voice shaky but sincere. "I don't know what I would have done without you. Please, let me pay you for your trouble." Logan shook his head, brushing off her offer. "No need for that. Just glad you're safe." The woman hesitated, her expression softening. "At least let me know your name. I'd like to repay your kindness someday." "Logan Carter," he replied with a faint smile. "But really, there's no need. Just pay it forward." The woman introduced herself as Amelia. There was something about how she looked at Logan, a mix of gratitude and something more profound, as though she memorized his face. With one last thank you, she drove off, leaving Logan to wonder if their paths would ever cross again. As Logan climbed back into his truck, soaked to the bone but oddly content, he had no idea that stopping on that rainy night would soon lead him to a moment that would end his entire life. 2 days later, Logan's routine was back to normal, or as regular as life could be for a man juggling overdue bills and long hours. The garage was bustling, and Logan was elbow-deep in grease, trying to coax an old pickup truck back to life, when his phone buzzed in his pocket. "Logan, you've got to get home. Right now." His neighbor Daniel's frantic voice echoed through the line. Logan frowned, pulling the phone closer. "What's going on, Dan?" "There's a helicopter." "Yes, a helicopter, parked in front of your house. And a bunch of men in suits are waiting for you." Logan blinked in disbelief. "A helicopter? Are you sure you're not pulling my leg? I wouldn't joke about something like this. Just get home. Quick." Hanging up, Logan hurriedly cleaned his hands and left the garage, his mind racing with questions. As he approached his street, the scene was exactly as Daniel had described. A sleek, black helicopter sat on his front lawn, its blades now still, flanked by several sharply dressed individuals who looked entirely out of place in the modest neighborhood. Logan parked his truck and stepped out cautiously. Before he could speak, one of the men approached, extending a hand. "Mr. Carter," the man began politely but firmly. "We're here on behalf of Ms. Amelia, the woman you helped 2 nights ago. She asked us to bring you to her estate." Logan's confusion deepened. "Her estate? What's this about?" The man offered a small, knowing smile and handed Logan a sealed envelope. "She'll explain everything once you arrive. All I can tell you is that your kindness did not go unnoticed." Logan opened the envelope with shaky hands. Inside was a handwritten note. "Logan, your kindness was a gift I didn't deserve, but one I'll never forget. Please come with them. I promise it will be worth your time." Still reeling, Logan looked back at the man, then the helicopter. His gut told him this wasn't just a simple thank you gesture, but curiosity and a hint of intrigue pushed him to nod in agreement. "All right," Logan said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. "Let's go." As the helicopter lifted off, Logan stared out the window at the small town below, shrinking into the distance. He had no idea what awaited him, but something told him his life would change in ways he could never have imagined. The hum of the helicopter's blades filled Logan's ears as he stared out the window, watching the familiar streets of Willow Creek fade into the horizon. Anxiety and curiosity wrestled for control of his thoughts. Who exactly was Amelia, and why had she gone to such lengths to contact him? The flight wasn't long, but it felt like hours to Logan, whose mind raced with questions he couldn't answer. As they approached their destination, Logan's breath caught in his throat. Below him, nestled within acres of sprawling, manicured gardens, stood a mansion that seemed to belong to another world. The estate was enormous, its ivory walls glinting in the sunlight, surrounded by fountains, marble statues, and a maze of hedges that could have been plucked from a fairy tale. The helicopter began its descent, and Logan's palms grew clammy as he gripped the armrest of his seat. This was far beyond anything he had ever seen, let alone imagined stepping into. The helicopter landed gracefully on a polished stone helipad. The same man who had handed him the envelope, along with a small staff team, was waiting to greet him. As Logan stepped out, the estate's crisp air and quiet elegance made him feel impossibly small. "This way, Mr. Carter," the man said, gesturing toward the main house. Logan followed, his boots scuffing against the pristine marble pathway as they approached the grand entrance. Massive double doors swung open, revealing an interior even more opulent than the exterior. Crystal chandeliers, intricate gold trim, and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed breathtaking views of the gardens greeted him. "Please, wait here," the man said, leading Logan into a sunlit room with plush armchairs and a roaring fireplace. The man departed before Logan could ask any questions, leaving him alone. Minutes later, the sound of soft footsteps caught Logan's attention. He turned to see Amelia entering the room. She looked entirely different from the rain-soaked woman he had helped days ago. Clad in an elegant cream-colored dress, her presence exuded confidence and grace, yet her expression carried a warmth that instantly put Logan at ease. "Logan," Amelia said, her voice soft but steady. "I'm so glad you came." Logan rose to his feet, awkwardly brushing his hands against his jeans. This is a lot to take in," he admitted. "What's all this about?" Amelia smiled, gesturing for him to sit. "I owe you an explanation. That night in the rain, you stopped to help me when no one else would. You didn't ask for anything, not even my name. What you didn't know is that I'm not just Amelia. I'm the owner of this estate and the CEO of a company you've probably never heard of, because we work behind the scenes in global industries. My life is complicated, and I rarely meet people who do something purely out of kindness." Logan shifted in his seat, unsure how to respond. "I just did what anyone would have done," he said honestly. "It wasn't a big deal." Amelia leaned forward, her eyes locking with his. "That's exactly why it's a big deal. Kindness like yours is rare, and it reminded me of something I'd forgotten in my world of boardrooms and contracts. Humanity." She paused, then continued. I wanted to thank you in a way that reflects how much your simple act meant to me. But I'll let you decide what happens next. Logan's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Amelia stood and walked to a nearby table, where an envelope and a set of keys rested. She picked them up and brought them over to Logan. This envelope contains enough money to live comfortably for the rest of your life. The keys are to a brand new truck parked just outside the mansion. But that's not all. Logan stared at the items in disbelief, his hands trembling as Amelia placed them in front of him. I don't understand, he murmured. Why would you do this for me? Because you deserve it, Amelia replied, her tone unwavering. People like you go through life working hard, often unnoticed and unappreciated. But not this time. This time, your kindness is being rewarded. Logan sat back, his mind spinning. The idea of financial security, finally breaking free from the constant struggle to make ends meet, was overwhelming. Yet Amelia wasn't finished. I also want to offer you something more meaningful, she said. A position on my team. It's not just a job. It's a chance to use your skills and heart to make a difference. I've seen too many people who lose sight of what matters in their pursuit of success. You could help me change that. Logan's throat tightened. The life he had always known, long hours at the garage, barely scraping by, felt like a distant memory compared to the opportunity Amelia was presenting. But it also felt daunting, almost too good to be true. I don't know if I can accept this, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. It's too much. I'm just a mechanic. Amelia reached out, resting a hand on his. You're more than that, Logan. You're the kind of person this world needs more of, humble, hardworking, and kind. Take your time to think about it, but know that this offer will always stand. Logan felt the weight of his daily struggles begins to lift for the first time in years, replaced by the promise of something new. As he left the mansion that day, the envelope and keys in hand, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was on the cusp of an extraordinary transformation. Yet deep down, Logan knew that accepting such a life-altering offer would require courage to step into the unknown and embrace a future he had never imagined. Back at his modest home, Logan sat at the small kitchen table where he had spent countless nights balancing bills and planning for repairs he could never reasonably afford. Amelia had given him the envelope, and the keys lay in front of him, like artifacts from a dream he hadn't yet woken from. He hadn't opened the envelope. Not yet. Something about it felt almost sacred, a tangible representation of a future he wasn't sure deserved. The keys, on the other hand, were more accessible to process. Logan had already peeked outside at the sleek new truck parked in his driveway, its gleaming finish against the weathered houses lining the street. The sight of it had both thrilled and unnerved him. Logan's thoughts churned. Accepting Amelia's offer meant leaving behind everything he knew. The garage where he had spent most of his adult life, the neighbors who relied on his help, and the quiet predictability of a life where the most considerable excitement was finding an unexpected discount at the grocery store. Could he enter the world Amelia had shown him? A world of wealth, influence, and power? Logan returned to the garage the next day, hoping the routine would clear his mind. But nothing felt the same. Every tool he picked up, every car he worked on, reminded him of the weight of the decision he now carried. His coworkers noticed the change in him, though Logan did not explain. The question loomed in his mind. Was he ready to leave this behind? That evening, Logan finally opened the envelope. Inside was a check, a sum so large he had to blink several times to ensure he read it correctly. Alongside it was a handwritten note from Amelia. Logan, this is a token of my gratitude. But the real gift is the opportunity I'm offering. You can step into a life where your kindness can ripple outward and inspire others. Whatever you choose, know that you've already changed my life. The words stayed with him as he sat on his porch that night, staring at the quiet street. The money could solve all his immediate problems, but the job, working with Amelia, was an opportunity to find something more, something meaningful. It was a sleepless night, but by morning, Logan felt a clarity he hadn't expected. He couldn't let fear hold him back. He had spent too many years playing it safe, accepting life as it was rather than as it could be. For once, he wanted to take a chance. Logan dialed the number Amelia had left with him. His hand trembled slightly as he waited for the call to connect. Logan. Amelia's voice came through the line, warm and pregnant. I had a feeling I'd hear from you. I've thought about your offer, Logan began, his voice steady but cautious. And I want to accept. I don't know the future, but I'm ready to find out. Amelia's relief was palpable, even over the phone. I'm glad to hear that. I promise, Logan. This will be the start of something incredible. 2 days later, the helicopter returned, a sight that no longer felt surreal, but instead like a sign of the new path Logan had chosen. This time, he packed a bag, a modest collection of his belongings, including a photo of his parents and a well-worn copy of a book his father used to read to him. These small items were his anchors, reminders of where he had come from. As the helicopter lifted off, Logan watched his town shrink below him, the streets and rooftops blending into the landscape. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of lightness, as though he were leaving behind a place and the burdens that had defined his life. When they arrived at Amelia's estate, the transition felt smoother than Logan had anticipated. Amelia introduced him to her staff and gave him a tour of the estate, including the workshop she had explicitly prepared for him. The space was state-of-the-art, equipped with tools and technology Logan had only dreamed of using. Clearly, Amelia had thought carefully about integrating his skills into her world. Your role here won't just be about fixing things, Amelia explained as they walked through the workshop. I want you to help me build something. Programs, outreach initiatives, ways to make kindness and generosity a cornerstone of what we do. The idea thrilled and intimidated Logan in equal measure. But as the days turned into weeks, he found himself adapting. The work was challenging but rewarding, and for the first time, Logan felt that his efforts were contributing to something greater than himself. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and bathed the estate in golden light, Logan stood on the terrace overlooking the gardens. Amelia joined him, holding 2 glasses of iced tea. You've come a long way, Logan, she said, handing him a glass. Do you feel like you've found your place here? Logan took a sip, his gaze fixed on the horizon. I do, he said finally. I never imagined my life could look like this, but I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Amelia smiled, a mixture of pride and gratitude in her expression. It's funny, isn't it? How one moment, one act of kindness, can change everything. Logan nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. He thought back to that rainy night, to the simple decision to stop and help a stranger. It had felt so small then, but now he realized how profound it was. Kindness is a gift, Logan said, almost to himself, and you never know where it might lead. At that moment, as the cool evening breeze swept through the gardens, Logan felt something he hadn't in years: peace. Weeks turned into months, and Logan's new life began to take shape. The once overwhelming opulence of Amelia's estate had become familiar, though Logan never took it for granted. His work was more fulfilling than he ever imagined. Amelia had tasked him with leading several projects aimed at helping local communities, initiatives that ranged from funding small businesses to creating vocational training programs for mechanics and artisans like Logan. One such project brought Logan back to his old neighborhood. Amelia's foundation was launching a program to revitalize small towns like Willow Creek, and Logan was spearheading the effort. Standing in the same garage where he had spent years fixing cars, he couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion. He saw himself and the young mechanics working tirelessly, their hands covered in grease, their dreams limited by circumstance. Logan gathered the staff in the garage one afternoon, his voice steady but full of conviction. I used to stand where you're so, he began. I know how hard this job is, how easy it is to feel stuck. But I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be that way. You have skills, heart, and determination, and that's worth more than you might realize. The program offered scholarships, equipment upgrades, and mentorship opportunities. It wasn't just about giving back, but creating a ripple effect. Logan's story, once a quiet tale of resilience, was now inspiring others to believe in the possibility of something greater. As the days passed, Logan began to notice how his simple decision to help Amelia that rainy night had created a web of change. It wasn't just his life that had transformed. It was the lives of those he now worked to uplift. The mechanics in Willow Creek, the small business owners starting anew, and the families finding hope in unexpected places were all part of a bigger story. While reviewing plans for a new community project, one even approached Logan in the workshop. "You one evening done more than I ever imagined," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "This isn't just a job for you, is it?" Logan looked up from his blueprints, a soft smile on his lips. "It never was. It's a second chance to be the person I always wanted to be." Amelia nodded, understanding the depth of his words. "And you've given others that same chance." Logan's newfound purpose brought him joy, but it also forced him to confront the ghosts of his past. For years, he had buried the pain of losing his parents and the struggles of growing up with little support. As he worked to help others, he realized he couldn't fully embrace his future without addressing where he had come from. One day, Amelia found him sitting alone in the estate's library, staring at an old photo of his parents. "You've been quiet lately," she said, sitting beside him. "What's on your mind?" Logan hesitated, then sighed. "I've been thinking about them. My parents. They worked hard, gave so much, and never saw what their sacrifices meant. I guess I want to make them proud." "You already have," Amelia said gently. "And if they were here, they'd see that in everything you're doing." Her words struck a chord. That evening, Logan made a decision. With Amelia's help, he organized a dedication ceremony at the workshop he had created on her estate. It wasn't just a celebration of their work. It was a tribute to the people who had shaped Logan into the man he had become. The ceremony was intimate, attended by those who Logan's kindness and leadership had impacted. Amelia gave a heartfelt speech, highlighting Logan's journey and the legacy he was building. But it was Logan's words that left everyone moved. "This isn't just about me," Logan began, his voice steady but full of emotion. "It's about everyone who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. It's about the strangers who showed me kindness, the mentors who taught me, and the friends who stood by me. Kindness isn't something we keep to ourselves. It's something we pass on." The room erupted in applause, but for Logan, the real reward was his sense of closure. For the first time, he no longer felt like he was running from his past. Instead, he was honoring it, using it as a foundation for the future. As the sun set that evening, Logan stood on the estate's balcony, watching the golden light fade into twilight. Amelia joined him, a glass of wine in her hand. "You've come full circle," she said, her voice soft but sure. Logan nodded. "And yet, it feels like this is just the beginning." The two stood in comfortable silence, the breeze carrying a sense of peace and possibility. Logan had no idea what the future held, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid to face it. Kindness had brought him this far. He was ready to see where it would lead. Life at Amelia's estate had become more than a workplace for Logan. It was a second home, a sanctuary where his talents and values flourished. Over time, the projects he led began to gain recognition far beyond their local reach. National organizations reached out, curious about the vocational programs and community revitalization efforts spearheaded by Amelia's foundation. Logan was in meetings he could never have imagined, speaking to policymakers and business leaders about the power of kindness and opportunity. But despite the growing success, Logan never let it get to his head. He still visited the garages, workshops, and community centers they funded. A young woman approached him on one such visit, nervously holding a small notebook. "Mr. Carter," she began, her voice trembling, "I wanted to thank you. Because of your program, I could finish my apprenticeship and open my shop. My dad always said I couldn't do it, but now he brags about me to everyone." Logan smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "You did this, not me. I just gave you the tools. The rest was all you." The encounter stayed with Logan, reinforcing his belief that small actions could lead to extraordinary changes. It wasn't just about fixing cars or funding projects. It was about fixing lives, creating opportunities, and showing people they were capable of more than they realized. As the foundation expanded, so did the challenges. Only some people embraced the changes Logan and Amelia brought to their communities. Some accused them of overstepping, of making decisions that disrupted long-standing traditions. Others questioned Logan's credentials, whispering that he was just a mechanic playing a role far beyond his expertise. The criticism stung, But Logan refused to let it derail him. He leaned on Amelia's wisdom and the lessons he had learned from his struggles. Kindness doesn't always come easy, she told him one evening as they reviewed plans for a controversial new project. Sometimes, it challenges people's comfort zones. But that doesn't mean it's not worth fighting for. Logan took those words to heart, addressing every challenge with the same patience and persistence he once used to fix engines. Slowly, he won over skeptics, not with grand gestures, but with genuine conversations and actions that proved his insincere intentions. One of his proudest moments came when a small-town mayor, once one of his harshest critics, invited Logan to speak at a community event. "I was wrong about you," the mayor admitted publicly. "You've shown us that change doesn't mean losing who we are. It means becoming better versions of ourselves." For Logan, the moment wasn't just a victory. It was proof that the ripple effect of kindness could reach even the most resistant hearts. Years later, Logan stood on the stage of a grand auditorium, accepting an award for his contributions to community development. The room erupted in applause, but Logan felt a pang of disbelief. This wasn't the life he had envisioned on those long nights at the garage. Yet here he was, not because he had chased fame or fortune, but because he had chosen to help someone in need. As he stepped up to the microphone, Logan took a deep breath, scanning the faces in the audience. Amelia was there, smiling warmly, her presence a reminder of how it all began. He spoke not of his achievements, but the lesson that had guided him through it all. "Success isn't measured by what you have," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "It's measured by the lives you touch, the opportunities you create, and the kindness you show. I was just a mechanic with a tool set and a heart for helping people. But when you give without expecting anything in return, life has a way of surprising you." The applause was thunderous, but Logan's focus wasn't on the crowd but on the journey that had brought him here. He thought of that rainy night, the decision to pull over, Amelia's gratitude, and the countless lives they had impacted together. Later that evening, as Logan and Amelia walked through the gardens of her estate, she turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't stopped that night?" "All the time," Logan admitted. "But I think I would have found my way here eventually. Kindness can find its path, even when we don't see it at first." Amelia smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I think you're right." Logan felt a profound sense of fulfillment as the stars twinkled above them. His life had transformed in ways he could never have imagined, but the heart of it all remained simple: kindness, humility, and the courage to take a chance. As he looked toward the future, Logan knew something. This was only the beginning of an even more remarkable legacy.